Okay, so hello, welcome everyone. Chokma, thank you for joining us for the first open studio for Simon and Benedict's digital artist in residency on the Ender Gallery Minecraft server. We're, I guess, three of us here are gathered on Treaty 4 territory, homeland of the Métis and the traditional territories of the Dakota, Lakota, Nakota, Cree, and the Soto people. I'm John Hampton. I'm the executive director and CEO at the Mackenzie Art Gallery. Very excited and happy to be partnering with Ender Gallery to help present this series. And this particular residency is, I think the land acknowledgement is important as we think about how we are honoring and documenting and naming and speaking of the land in these digital spaces, in these recreations, these simulations that very much rely on all of the gifts of the land to keep them running. And I'm not going to go on for too much longer because you're not here for me. So I'm going to pass the mic on. Is John and Kat or Sarah, would you like to introduce Simon? Or
well, Simon and Benedict is our current resident for Ender Gallery, who I will refocus on with my camera right now. And yeah, we're joined here today both by Simon and his sister Evelyn Benedict, who he's been collaborating with for his project. I won't give too much away for the project. I'll leave that to Simon, but I would like to mention for our audience that to be advised that our event today may discuss the residential school system, genocide and death. And in the text chats, we are linking to the Mackenzie Art Gallery's recent statement from June 3rd that includes a list of educational resources for audience members who wish to learn more about these systems and their legacies. And that text box is on the right-hand side of the video if you are watching on a desktop or computer, and it's linked below if you are in on a mobile device. So with that note, I would like to hand it off to you, Simon, and to thank you for opening your studio to the world to us at this time.
All right. Well, thank you. Yeah, maybe I should just briefly introduce myself. As mentioned, my name is Simon M. Benedict, and I'm an artist and translator of Franco-Québécois and Abenaki descent. The Abenaki being a pretty small tribe in Canada, now present in what is known as Quebec. And yeah, so I work with video typically, so this is a fairly new experience for me. But yeah, I don't know if this was mentioned, but I'm in what is known as Toronto, so the traditional territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat. And I hope that my residency project will, or I guess I feel like my residency project has allowed me to reflect on the spirit of the Dish with the One Spoon Treaty, which is the treaty of this territory, which is based in the collective care and sharing of land and resources, and extends to all the people that live here today. At least that was the initial spirit of the project. As I'll talk about it a little bit, you'll see that it's kind of changed along the way. But I just want to start by saying that the beginning of this project actually was very much so inspired by the work that my sister is doing in Odanak today, you know, actually on the ground. So, you know, I've created this little virtual space that kind of reflects my connection or lack thereof with the physical space of Odanak today. But she has been working there for, how long has it been, Evelyn, now that you've been like working for the land office in Odanak?
2017.
Okay, so it's been a while.
Yeah.
And and yeah, so and during your time there, you've collaborated with Donna Bomsawin in Odanak, and you co-wrote this booklet that's about medicinal plants that are present right now on the territory. Right? That's right, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Do you want to talk a tiny bit about that? Just say like maybe
Sure.
where the idea came from.
Yeah, actually, I'm a field assistant at the Environmental and Lands Office in Odanak, but I have different things to do every day. But I mean, at one point, I did some inventory of the medicinal plants and trees in Odanak, and I've always been passionate about plants in general. But I mean, I think that was a big turning point in my life, and that's when I really got very interested in those different plants, and I really wanted to know them better. And then I met Donna, and we just started like learning together and working together to just to rekindle with ourselves and the world of plants. So then we started just like having fun with them, and just like just yeah. So then we had the opportunity that we could write certain things that we had learned about these plants that grow in Oda, and we just started writing. At first, it was supposed to be just this little booklet about certain recipes that we liked, but then it got bigger, and there were so many things that we wanted to say about these plants and about everything that we had been healing with those plants, and healing ourselves across the plant world, and trying to heal as well our community across all of this was one of the important parts that we wanted to do with this booklet, and keep it a live document also, so that there, yes, we made the booklet, but it's always there's always room for people to add, or different families to and cherish it and keep it going all the time. So
yeah. So thanks. Like when everyone shared that with me, well, she shared with me that she'd been working on the project, and then shared the actual booklet with me once it was completed in its current version. And I felt really proud, and also it was interesting because I had been sort of I've done a couple of different projects. Like since 2018, I've been working with like Indigenous representation in various media, and eventually I worked on a project about Indigenous representation in video games, or misrepresentation in video games, and which kind of like led to this project, because I got interested in also sort of gardening and gathering and hunting in video games, and how these activities were sort of rendered useless through the game, or at least their usefulness was only existed in game. So there was no sort of like applicable knowledge to what was happening. And I thought it would be interesting to take this applied knowledge that my sister had, and this, partly inspired from ancestral knowledge, and putting it in the game. So the initial idea was to recreate this medicinal garden using the actual plants that, retexturing certain objects in the game, so you could see the actual plants and see where this garden actually physically exists in this space. So where we're standing right now, we're sort of between these three buildings that I've built. And if maybe we'll just go over to the health center right now, which is this green and gray building. I started building the health center with in mind, setting up the garden, which is, just behind the health center, just around the corner from the health center. You can see the logo on the front was actually designed by my dad, Ralph Benedict. He's also very active in the community. He works at the college there, the Indigenous college there, and he's done a lot of graphic design work for the community. So the logo in the front is sort of my bare bones adaptation of it. But
just
just to clarify for the audience, I think that the texture pack is not loaded on the server, so might not be appearing on the stream.
It is on the
We
screen.
got it.
Oh, you got it on the stream. Okay, so I don't have it personally. Never mind.
Yeah, no, I can see it on the stream. Yeah, so yes, the health center. So yeah, I've been working from some images that Evelyn has sent me, and then some images. I've been working a lot from Google Street View actually, and I've been trying to recreate the building at least from the outside as closely as possible to what I saw in Google Street View, which isn't always very accurate. So like the building is not actually that green. But so if we go around the corner, I did start setting up sort of a mock garden where the medicinal garden will be. And I rebuilt, there's like a little picnic table there. So I rebuilt a little picnic table so people can hang out there. And the little garden area, I still have to figure out.
Wow.
Yeah, Evelyn hasn't seen any of this yet, so this is yeah, so I just planted some flowers there just to give it a little bit of life. I just had sort of like dirt there, but the grass keeps growing back. I have to figure out how to not have grass grow back, but that's another story. Anyway, so yeah, so that's where the garden will be. And I kind of like the fact that, initially I wanted to make this like really big garden. I had different ideas. I was like, I'm gonna make this like 4 directions garden and have like each plant represent a color, and like it was gonna be this really massive thing. But then I was like, got rooted in the reality of it all and decided to just go with what I saw and what my sister was showing me. And I kind of like that idea too. Like it makes it more cozy in a way. And also I think reflects kind of my own interaction with the game, which I think I was telling this to my sister earlier that, as you can see, my avatar in the game right now is Link from the Zelda games. And like, to me, like I entered this space as just sort of as a game really, and just started playing with it because I was not very familiar with Minecraft. And yeah, I just was remembering like playing The Sims back in the day, and like I was just like, I'm just gonna build my house. And I was very sort of like grounded. I was never very imaginative, I guess, in the way that I was interacting with these games that let you create and let you sort of like go a little bit outside of the box. But yeah, so anyway, all this to say that it's still fairly rooted in the real world, or at least that's the way I'm seeing it.
It's actually pretty accurate, Simon. I mean,
yeah, okay, good.
The space, the size it has, and the only difference is that us is a medicine wheel, so it's
right.
not a square, it's a wheel. So
yeah, well,
that's the only thing.
Circles are hard in Minecraft. I'm going to make this a bit more circular, but to do that, I'm gonna have to make it slightly larger. Like it's hard to, it is hard to make circles of such a small size, but I'll try and reflect that when it's being actually done. So yeah, so I started building the health center sort of around this idea, and the health center being what it is, symbolically as a place of healing, and also in reality of like healing of the body. And then across from there, I guess what happened in the meantime is that the discovery in Kamloops was made at the residential school site, and I just kind of, my initial goal was to create this like nice space for healing and to sort of, I don't even know if I was going to talk about history necessarily, or if I just wanted to keep it rooted in the now. But it became relevant, and it became very obvious that I should address that in some way. And I started thinking about the architecture in Abenaki and sort of the buildings that are there today and how they hold that history and how they continue. And this is my speculation and from stories that I've heard from other people in other communities, but continue to have this sort of hold this power of the damage that was done by, colonialism and religious institutions that were trying to push their own agendas and preventing communities from keeping their languages and their culture and their art and their dances. So I started building the Anglican church sort of, and the way the buildings are in relation to one another is kind of reflective of how they are in the space. Like the distance is obviously not one-to-one, but yeah. So as far as I understand, children in Odanak weren't as affected by the residential school system as such, but those who were sent to, as I understand it, a residential school in Ontario, which was run by the Anglican Church. So the church here is the Anglican Church, the St. Francis Church that's still present in Odanak today. And as far as I know, is still being attended. Maybe Evelyn, you know more about that than I do. But yeah, so
I'm sorry, Simon. I didn't hear the last sentence you said.
Oh, I was just saying, I don't know how well used by the community the Anglican Church is today, but maybe you do.
There's actually no mass in the Anglican Church. There hadn't been for years.
Okay.
They're more at the other church beside the museum. So that's where the mass is, because all of the other churches around the little villages either have been destroyed or nobody goes anymore. So Odanak is like the place for mass now for Catholics.
Oh, even for like neighboring communities and everything.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. So anyway, so I felt like it was important to show this space just as a remnant of that history, and yeah. So I built that, and there's a giant cross on top, which is, I don't know. I was trying to build a smaller one, but then because of the way I built the initial building, the top part here is 2 blocks wide. So in Minecraft, if you want to make any, you can't center a single block on 2 blocks. So anyway, so I ended up making a much bigger cross. It could have been like made up of like 7 blocks or 8 blocks or whatever, but it ended up being this massive thing. So yeah, so it looks very imposing, but I think is also ended up being sort of a reflection of mine anyways, of again, the power and the power the church had in these communities, and in some cases continue to have today. And this is not to, some people in the community are Christians, and that's all good. It's just that as someone who also grew up Christian, or grew up going to church, I feel like it's I have my own history with that, and I felt like I needed to address it or show it in some way. And just to be clear, maybe I didn't mention this up top, but neither Evelyn nor I grew up in Odanak. So, we grew up going to powwows and visiting occasionally, but our family didn't live there. It wasn't until, well, in Evelyn's case, until a few years ago where she started being more present and active in the community. But yeah, we didn't live there as kids. We lived in Trois-Rivières, which is like a nearby city. And then the building that's still under construction behind, and by the way, Kat or John or Sarah, feel free to jump in at any point if you have anything to add or ask that I may have mentioned before and you think might be of interest. But so this other building that I'm working on right now is used to be the Grey Sisters Convent. So I was saying earlier that kids in Odanak weren't sent to the residential schools, but this was where local Catholic education happened. So all this learning French or English, and learning proper Catholic ways and all that. This is where this happened. So it was, the local equivalent of a residential school, but it was a day school. So, kids were able to and could go back home after the day was done, which would have been a very different experience from what children experienced in residential schools. And so, but this building today, convent has been converted into the Abenaki Museum, which was established in the 60s. And there's going to be a big, like, the original brick building kind of looks like this, but in the back there's going to be a huge addition, which is the way the museum looks like today, with this big sort of more modern element to it. And again, yeah, so I'm considering putting another building to sort of show the Catholic history of the community, but I've already got two, and I feel like that's probably a lot. And weirdly, as I was building this, you may see in front of the building, there was like just this gaping hole in the ground with lava in it. And I just put some fencing around it here because I didn't want anyone to fall in by accident. But yeah, so I don't know if I'm going to leave that open or not. It might be just be a little bit on the nose to have like something that literally looks like hell in front of the old convent. But as someone who went to church and who the fear of hell was put into me at a very young age, and that was a weird kind of like, I wouldn't say necessarily trauma, but it's just such an odd thing to push on kids, and it just seemed strangely appropriate that this hole was there. So I kind of left it open for now. I'm still on the fence about whether I'll leave it there.
And there's this stairwell down in here too.
Yeah, well, I started. To be honest, I did start digging down. So if you, for those of you who can float in, you can sort of see it. It keeps going down. I think it goes right through the map, so you'll fall into nothingness if you keep going down. But be careful down there.
I'm on fire.
Yeah, well, that's what you get.
Here I go.
Anyway, I'll be outside.
When we're done with this aspect of your studio.
It's really funny that I've gotten diverted going down a lava hole.
Hello?
It's really funny that I've gotten diverted.
All right,
I think I finally found my way out of hell.
All right. Yeah, so that's where I'm at right now. As mentioned earlier, I started.
Wow, I'm underneath the world.
Oh, someone's gone. Is that Sarah? You're lost?
I think we lost Sarah to the fiery pit.
I'm not lost. I just had to, I had to see the bottom of the world. It was just too intriguing. I'm going to come back now. I just want to confirm for the viewers at home that the pit does indeed go through the world to the nothingness underneath.
I was tempted at some point to build a turtle under there, but I don't know if I can actually do that. To just have this whole space.
There's a like maximum depth, but I mean, so I'm probably a bit like at the bottom now, but like I guess slightly above the maximum depth, you could intervene.
Anyway, maybe that's for another project. Yeah, so this space here that's just sort of like been blown up. I'm going to build the Kiona College here, which is the first Indigenous post-secondary education Indigenous school in Quebec, and kids from and young adults from all over Quebec come in to learn different crafts, and there's film classes, there's different all kinds of different classes that are given there, and I just thought it was appropriate. Again, I was like thinking broadly about healing and about spaces of healing and spaces of where we can, as Abenaki and Indigenous people, sort of move away from these institutions, even if their presence physically is still being felt in the community. That moving ahead and moving on, and learning from the past for sure, but also building things literally and figuratively in the community is so important. So I wanted to give a shout out to the college, and also like my dad works there, so like it was not a it seemed obvious to me that if I was going to reflect my sister's work, I should also reflect my dad's work, because they're the reason why I still have this connection to the community, as small as it may be. It's been challenging, like I said before, I've been working from Google Street View, and photos that are being sent in to me, but initially I did want to go in and take photos and talk to people and that kind of thing, and I had this whole, I imagined in my mind this whole different experience of being physically in the space before moving it into Minecraft. But obviously with the pandemic, I haven't even been able to see any of my family since like February of 2020. So that's been hard too. But yeah, I mean, this is a way to, in a strange way, be in the space, but also build it from scratch, which is kind of like an odd place to be in. Yeah, you might see in the distance that there's like some other like structures, like there's like this weird pyramid and this upside down pyramid on top of it. This is kind of like when I first came in game, this is what I started building. I think this is the stage I was at where I was still like having fun and exploring in more of a gamey way. Yeah, I wanted to make, I was talking about making a medicinal garden that was sort of reflexive of the medicine wheel. And I was like, oh, I should make a medicine sphere. And then I really got into that idea of creating this massive medicine sphere with like the 4 colors and everything. But it just became bigger than me, and also like didn't feel like what I wanted to do ultimately. But I did create this big sphere.
I love this concept of a medicine sphere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it? That's John.
Yeah. Yes, that's me. The 6 directions.
Yeah.
Like my father always makes offerings to the 6 directions.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's still a nice space to hang out in, and just sort of, it is kind of this nice peaceful space. But yeah, I don't know. It might stay there. It might not. I'm not sure yet. I do have, so these other structures that I built, but they're all kind of, they're all temporary places probably. But I do sort of like, in the spirit of having an open studio, these are kind of like sketches and sort of throwaways and that kind of thing. And I thought it was fun, and to keep them here, like, I don't see any reason to destroy them right now, to get rid of them.
And you also built yourself a house here, correct? As one of your
first, I think that's the
uh,
first thing I built, because I was like, again, like I'm so new to Minecraft that, or I was at least when I first started, that I was like, oh, like the way I understood it, I've played the the survival mode before, and I was like, oh, like you need to have slept in a bed, or to have a bed to like like you have to set a respawn spot in case you die. So I was like, I need to build a place where I can put a bed, and then I just ended up building a house. And yeah, I just put a bunch of stuff on the walls, but yeah, it's not really a functional space, or yeah, it doesn't really, this has nothing to do with the actual, the other buildings or the actual installation. Again, they're just sort of like, this is when I was still playing the game versus trying to create a space in the game.
Interesting to think. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just thinking, I believe Kat, our last resident, also built a house as one of her first actions in the game, which is thinking about
really?
That's sort of how the affordances of Minecraft like inform perhaps a resident's like first interventions into the platform. Gotta make themselves a base to like map out everything else after that point.
Yeah, it was funny. I think I mentioned it in one of our earlier conversations when I was just starting to work. That it was a weird kind of like experience to be in this like, you know, infinite space, because you can just keep going forever and try to find a place to settle down and be like, okay, this is where I'm going to start building this garden or building this community. And it's this sort of also strangely, old colonial kind of mindset of like the earth is this sort of like massive unknown of water and land that we don't know about, and we're just gonna go ahead and like try and make it ours, whether there's people there or not. And it was a weird sort of like, I felt weird for a bit just being in that mindset of being like, this is, staking my claim and like planting my flag and be like, this is where I'm gonna live and build. And it just so happened that we talked about this too. Like, it just so happened that it was like right near this village. I think I probably spotted the village and I was like, I'll just drop here. And, if ever I need to interact with these people, I can interact with these people. Ultimately, I haven't really, but it also, I was talking about the location of Odanak today, like where it is, and it's sort of, they share, like they're in very close proximity with the community of Pierreville. And if you look at old agreements of like land tracts and stuff, like you can see that it like literally splits or Odanak literally splits Pierreville in half, or depends which way you look at it. But basically, if you're driving through, it goes like Pierreville, Odanak, Pierreville, or vice versa. I forget, but I think you might see both signs twice. But it's kind of, it feels kind of ridiculous when you're driving through, because they're both such small communities, but they're somehow also intermeshed. But it felt relevant in that sense to like have this other community exist in proximity. And obviously, like, you can tell they're thriving. They're like doing all kinds of stuff. I've just got this like these 3 or 4 like massive or like big buildings that don't really do much right now. So I don't know. Maybe that's kind of ironic. I'm not sure.
Well, yeah, it's interesting, like coming in, colonizing this randomly generated land with its own indigenous population here to create a recreation of home. That's both of the residents so far, and I think it's just an instinct in Minecraft. Maybe it's trained from that survival mode, but to build that house, or in The Sims, that replica of home, just makes me think about how in cities all across North America we have these very water-hungry European grasses, and like this of the colonization experience here was very much an attempt to recreate the people's homes across the ocean, and bringing in plants that they're familiar with, and terraforming it despite it really not fitting very well. And then the amount of labor, millions of people put into watering and mowing these lawns to keep that going.
There's something really odd also in like working in Minecraft and like trying to, like, when I made that big sphere, it like took a ridiculous amount of hours to build it, like block by block. And I was kind of thinking about what you were saying too, of this like absolute like stubbornness with like wanting to make something that fits this like one individual or like this one small community's ideal. And especially in a game period. I was just saying, in a game like Minecraft, but just in a game like creating these spaces again, like to what end? Like, how do they affect the real world? Do they affect the real world? I started trying to, for example, in the health center, I was like, I need to get rid of all these weeds and plants because it's just like a grass floor right now. And I started laying carpet down. And it was just like such a long, boring process of just trying to make this space unified and trying to make it you know, clean, because it's essentially a clinic and a hospital, you know, like it has a function within the community and it can't just be in disarray. So I was trying to make it cleaner. Obviously I haven't succeeded, or at least not yet, but
those are all medicinal plants.
yeah, that's another thing. Like, I mean, all the insides of the building, other than the church, all the insides of the buildings are just sort of open space right now, or, you know, a mix of grass and other stuff. And I don't know, maybe I'm lazy, but I kind of also like the half finished look. I might try to make something that's unified in its own sense, you know, make a through line with that, but or, you know, as has been suggested by Sarah and Kat and John, to like try and create some interactions with the local community and see if they'll come and visit and use these spaces if I make them usable or attractive enough. So far, there's only been monsters in here. So when night falls, all the monsters show up, and then I have to, if I'm working in here, I have to like come and. That's also like an odd thing. Like, you just come in and like kill monsters and then continue building. It's just such a strange, again, stubborn way to exist in the space. I think my sister dropped out a while ago, by the way. She had some
No,
issue
I'm
either
okay.
with the percent.
Oh, no, she's still here. You just might
She is?
not
Okay.
hear her.
Okay. Evelyn, can you hear
She
us?
reassured you that all of the weeds in this space are medicinal.
Yeah,
Oh, great.
I mean,
I don't know why I can't hear her. Anyways.
We can ask as your medium here.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, Evelyn, what your impressions are of the recreation of some of these buildings in Minecraft. What does it feel like to see them? Or yeah, what are your first thoughts?
well, it's really cool. I mean, it's really strange too, to be in this universe, and Simon's vision of. I've never even played Minecraft. I don't really know the game. I know I know a little bit of the game, but I hadn't never seen it live. So I think it's so cool to see, like, the first time I see Minecraft, it's my brother's recreation of Abenaki. I think it's really great, and I think he's done a really good job also to recreate everything about the health center and about all that he wants to say about what's happening right now in Abenaki, and about his view and himself in the nation. What else could I say? I think that it's great to be representing the important buildings, like he said before. The museum being the sisters. Sorry, help me.
Yeah, sorry. I just got you back for some reason. I couldn't hear you for that whole time. But yeah, the Grey Nuns or the Grey Sisters.
Yeah, the Grey Nuns. Thanks. And actually, I wanted to add something to that. You told me that that was a place where people that they were using to be like the residencies, but. Yeah. What I've heard of certain residents of Abenaki also is that a lot of them were sent to Ontario, and they were kept there for long periods of time. So the parents didn't have enough money to bring them back in Abenaki, so they would stay there for long periods of time.
Right.
Yeah,
that would have been the Anglican school.
Yeah.
I think it's in Brantford, I think, or was in Brantford.
It's an official policy of residential schools sometimes to intentionally send children far from their communities to better divorce them from their culture.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've heard also a lot of people have been trouble having getting back to their cultures and everything, because they would say no to their Abenaki status just because of the racism, and that they didn't want any problems for their future.
So, Simon, I have a question about installing and building this, working on it when the Kamloops news came out, and then followed by the Brandon Residential School and more. And did you? I was talking to Crystal Mowry yesterday about that when we were looking at a show Felicia Gay curated for the Mackenzie that deals with adoption and the 60s scoop. And she said, did you ever just take a pause and realize maybe you don't need to be working on this subject matter at this time?
Yeah, it's so like when the news came out, it honestly, I think it took me like 4 or 5 days before it actually hit me. And then it really hit me. And then I was just gone. Like that whole day, I was just like doing research and like trying to find out what had happened to Abenaki children, and just like, between like just crying and researching basically, which was like this sort of weird state to be in. And then I think I just landed back into Minecraft, and I can't remember what I was working on specifically at that moment, but I just like, I think if I had been in a different space, and maybe I would have gone outside and like chopped wood or something, but I just started building these buildings in Minecraft, just like manically like clicking with one finger just to make these things. So yeah, I don't know. There's a weird sort of, I don't want to say catharsis, but I was just letting, as cheesy as that may sound, like just letting that feeling guide me, and just not really, because I set out with this very specific plan. I was like, I'm just going to let these things that are in my mind right now just sort of like lead me through. And even though it is painful, like, and, I hope that I'm not causing people more pain by doing this. Like I can recognize that it's a very selfish endeavor what I'm doing, but it's kind of my way of. Oh, did I say something?
Sorry, that's me with a healing potion for you.
Well, thank you.
I think, yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, so just trying to figure that out through this like weird space that I put myself in. Yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but it kind of.
It does.
I didn't really think twice about it, in a sense, where I was just I just felt compelled to do it and to work through it in this way, and it just felt right while I was doing it, so I've just kept plugging away, I guess.
Yeah, I didn't think through it too much either, about how or what was happening to all processing it. But yeah, it was when the update from Brandon came that is when it hit me the hardest. And I had been that day, went into that show and looked at this new work by Brad LaRocque, and just everything all came together at once, and started, and then you just feel all of these things, and it was I think that something akin to what you're talking about, but it was a really productive and healing space to grieve, to feel that pain in a space that's sort of built for processing and for thinking, and using the art in that way just seemed like a really generous gift from Brad and from Felicia. And so that's I don't know, we have to find where those moments in there where it's where it does feel right and healing, rather than maybe just forcing ourselves forward sometimes.
Yeah, and I think that's partly why, I like, again, the idea of having this little garden just around the corner, just like tucked in. That's like, it feels like a very safe place to be, and a very like a nice little spot to just also like have these buildings, these other buildings, kind of be out of sight depending on which direction you're facing. But if you're facing the garden directly, you can sort of have these things out of they're never very far away, and obviously the community has made them so that, or at least the one building, so that it has another function today, and is much more positive for the growth of the community.
Mm-hmm.
That's also why I wanted to acknowledge and build the college, because it feels like such a strong counterpoint to these two other things. And oddly, like they're all also like the oldest building in the space. They're both like red brick. Like they kind of like have this different weight to them now that I'm looking at them. And the college would also look very different. Like they're both very like modern buildings built in the last, built in the 2000s. So they're very different in that sense too.
Evelyn, are you going to come to the server in the future? I really enjoyed that moment right at the beginning where you were responding to the garden, and that there's this active learning during the presentation of just of you talking through the circle and the garden. And
yeah, we might have to hook you up with a Minecraft, Evelyn, so that you can come into the game and check it out.
Yeah, I really like all the flowers. I mean, right now in the actual garden, not all of the flowers are bloomed, but I think it's really great to see it as colorful and alive as it is right now. It's a very good representation, even though you guys haven't necessarily seen it for real.
Yeah. No, and I definitely will have like the actual plants that are there right now. Like I'm gonna have to consult with you on that too. But
absolutely,
this is just sort of like a stand-in right now. But I'm glad you like it, even if in its current state. Were there any questions from the public that we?
We did not receive any questions in the chat. We asked a couple of prompts, but I think people are just enjoying, enjoying the presentation. I just wanted to say we are coming to the hour, so I wanted to extend the gratitude and for the time and the space that you've been sharing with us today, and Evelyn and John Hampton, that you've been able to join us and bring your insight onto this project has been really, really incredible for both for us as curators as well, having more perspectives on this work. I'm just wanting to see if there are any questions coming up last minute, but
when is the opening?
Yes, the opening. Just everyone mark in your calendars that we will have the opening, the public opening for this exhibit on on July 10th. So that's a Saturday, and you'll be able to at 1 p.m. as well, same time as this event, and you'll be able to join the server and experience this space for yourself.
Where did John go?
John went invisible.
And also, as we announce the opening for Simon's exhibition, it might also be worth saying that you have only about 10 days to see our current exhibition before we take it down and temporarily close the exhibition server for install.
Ender Gallery /how to join to find out how you can see what's on exhibit now.
Cool.
Fred Montplaisir says, no questions, but it's all very interesting and I'm proud of my cousins.
Oh, hi, Fred.
Oh.
Oh yeah, the M in my name stands for Montplaisir, so Simon Montplaisir.
And Jason on YouTube says, thank you, Simon.
Thanks. Thank you, Jay.
I guess just maybe while we are we winding down, or are we going to spend a moment to see if we get any last questions in the stream? While we're in there, I will say that I really love the inside of the healing center, the way it came out. I am killing zombies in there.
Great, thank you.
But I think it's really lovely, actually, with the green floor and the really minimal interventions.
Yeah, I tried to put up some neon lights. I used those rods to kind of recreate a sort of artificial neon type lighting.
Yeah, they look like fluorescence.
Yeah.
I appreciate that detail.
Yeah, it's still like some of this I just put up like an hour before we started, so I was just like came in and tried to clean things up a bit, but obviously there's still a lot to do, or maybe not. Who knows?
Maybe
oh, sorry.
No, I was just about to say maybe if we give the monsters some chamomile or something.
They might chill out.
Yeah.
I love that.
It's that or the sword.
Minecraft, you can only make Minecraft so much a peaceful game. I think actually, I was going to offer we can turn off the spawning of mobs on the server level if you would prefer.
Right. Nah, it's okay. It's all part of the game.
Well, thank you. Thank you, everyone. Yeah, I think with that, we are winding down for the stream. If the residents want to have a few words off camera, you're welcome to do that. We'll just say thank you for everyone who's been watching at home, and come check out the opening on July 10th at 1 p.m. Saskatchewan time.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thank you, Simon and Evelyn, for joining too.
Take care.